I never thought my own family would try to steal from me. My name is Margaret, and at 78 years old, I thought I had seen everything life could throw at me, but nothing prepared me for the night my 8-year-old granddaughter, Emma, whispered those chilling words in my ear. "Grandma, tonight my parents are going to take your fortune." It was a cold Tuesday evening in November in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The wind was howling outside my two-story Victorian home on Elm Street, rattling the old windows that my late husband Robert had always promised to replace but never got around to. The heating system was working overtime, and I could hear it humming in the basement as I sat in my favorite armchair, knitting a scarf for Emma's upcoming birthday. My son David and his wife Jennifer had come over for dinner, as they did every Tuesday. It was a tradition we started after Robert passed away 3 years ago. They said they wanted to make sure I wasn't lonely, but lately I had been noticing strange looks between them, hushed conversations that stopped when I entered the room, and an unusual interest in my financial affairs. David worked as a mid-level manager at a tech company downtown, but I knew from our conversations that money was tight. Jennifer had been laid off from her nursing job 6 months ago, and they were struggling to keep up with their mortgage payments on their house in the suburbs. Emma had mentioned that they might have to move to a smaller place, and I could see the stress lines forming around my son's eyes. That evening, as we finished our pot roast dinner, Emma had been unusually quiet. She kept glancing between her parents and me with those big brown eyes that reminded me so much of her grandfather. After dinner, while David and Jennifer were in the kitchen washing dishes and speaking in low voices, Emma approached my chair. "Grandma, can I tell you a secret?" she whispered, climbing onto my lap. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, stroking her long blonde hair. That's when she said those words that made my blood run cold. But before I could ask her what she meant, David called out from the kitchen, "Emma, time to go. Get your backpack." Jennifer appeared in the doorway, her face flushed from the warm dishwater, but there was something else in her expression. Something I couldn't quite place. Guilt, maybe? Or determination? "Mom, we're heading out," David said, avoiding my eyes. "Thanks for dinner, as always." As they gathered their things, I noticed Jennifer glancing toward the small mahogany desk in the corner where I kept my important papers. David seemed nervous, checking his phone repeatedly and tapping his foot against the hardwood floor. "See you next week, Grandma," Emma said, giving me an extra long hug. As she pulled away, she pressed something small into my hand. "Don't forget what I told you," she whispered, so quietly, I almost didn't hear her. After they left, I looked at what Emma had given me. It was a small piece of paper, folded several times. My hands were shaking as I unfolded it. In Emma's careful third-grade handwriting, it read, "They changed your pills. Don't take them tonight." I heard them talking. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ear. I walked quickly to my bathroom and picked up the pill organizer that Jennifer had helpfully filled for me last Sunday. She had started doing this after I mentioned forgetting to take my blood pressure medication a few times. I had been so grateful for her help. I opened the compartment for Tuesday night and poured the pills into my palm. They looked different. My blood pressure medication was usually white and round, but these were slightly yellow and more oval-shaped. The sleeping pill I took for my insomnia was normally blue, but this one was white. My mind was racing. Emma was just 8 years old. Could she have misunderstood something? But as I thought back over the past few weeks, pieces started falling into place. Jennifer's sudden interest in organizing my medication, David's questions about my will and whether I had updated it recently, their hushed conversations about having to do something soon, and she won't be around forever anyway. I had worked hard my entire life to build what Robert and I had saved every penny, invested wisely, and lived modestly. We owned our home outright, had a substantial savings account, and I had inherited some money from my parents. It wasn't a fortune by some standards, but it was worth about $800,000 total, enough to pay off David and Jennifer's mortgage and give Emma a college fund with plenty left over. But was my own son really willing to kill me for it? I couldn't sleep that night. I kept the pills in a small bowl on my nightstand, staring at them in the dim light from my bedside lamp. Outside, the November wind continued to howl, and I could hear the old house settling around me. Every creak made me jump. Every sound from the street made me wonder if someone was coming back. The next morning, I called my doctor's office as soon as they opened. Peterson's office. This is Sandy speaking. Sandy, this is Margaret Williams. I need to ask you something important. Did Dr. Peterson change any of my medications recently? Let me check your file, Mrs. Williams. No, there haven't been any changes to your prescriptions in over 6 months. Is something wrong? My worst fears were confirmed. I thanked Sandy and hung up, my hands trembling. Then I did something I never thought I would have to do. I called the police. Detective Maria Rodriguez arrived at my house that afternoon. She was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a gentle manner that immediately put me at ease. I had been worried that she would think I was just a paranoid old woman, but she listened carefully to everything I told her. Mrs. Williams, these are very serious accusations. Do you still have the pills that were switched? I showed her the bowl with the suspicious medications. She carefully placed them in an evidence bag. We'll have these analyzed, she said. In the meantime, I want you to be very careful. Don't eat or drink anything that someone else has prepared, and consider staying somewhere else for a few days. Where would I go? This is my home. Do you have any other family members or close friends who could stay with you? I realized how isolated I had become since Robert died. My sister lived in California, and most of my old friends had either moved to warmer climates or passed away. David and Jennifer had gradually become my main social contact, and now I understood why. It made their plan easier. Detective Rodriguez must have seen the despair on my face. Miss Williams, we have safe house options for situations like this. But first, let me ask you something. You mentioned your granddaughter gave you this warning. Is there any way we could speak with her privately? She's in school right now. Jefferson Elementary on Oak Street. I'll have a social worker meet with her. Children often see and hear more than adults realize, and they haven't learned to dismiss their instincts yet. That afternoon, I packed a small bag and went to stay at a modest hotel downtown. From my room on the 3rd floor, I could see the Mississippi River in the distance, its dark water reflecting the gray November sky. I felt like I was in a nightmare. How had my life come to this? My phone rang constantly. David called 6 times, Jennifer called 4 times, and they both left increasingly frantic voicemails. Mom, where are you? We came by to check on you, and you're not home. Margaret, it's Jennifer. We're worried sick. Please call us back. Mom, this isn't like you. If something's wrong, we can help. We love you. The irony of that last message made me laugh bitterly. They loved me so much they were willing to poison me. Detective Rodriguez called me that evening with an update. Mrs. Williams, the lab results came back. The pills that were supposed to be your blood pressure medication were actually a powerful sedative, combined with what was supposed to be your sleeping pill, which was actually a different type of sedative. The combination could have been fatal, especially for someone your age with your medical history. I felt sick to my stomach. So they really were trying to kill me. It appears we also spoke with Emma at school today. She told our social worker that she overheard her parents talking about how you wouldn't suffer and how they could make it look like you just went peacefully in your sleep. She said they mentioned something about finally being free of debt and how they deserved the money more than anyone else. What happens now? We're going to arrest them tonight. I'm sorry, Mrs. Williams. I know this can't be easy. It wasn't easy. Nothing about the next few weeks was easy. David and Jennifer were charged with attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. The local news picked up the story, and suddenly everyone in the neighborhood knew that my own son had tried to kill me for my money. The hardest part was Emma. Child Protective Services had placed her with Jennifer's sister in St. Paul temporarily, while the legal proceedings continued. I was allowed supervised visits, but explaining to an 8-year-old why her parents were in jail and why she couldn't live with them anymore was heartbreaking. Did I do the right thing, Grandma? She asked during one of our visits at the CPS office. We were sitting at a small table in a sterile room with fluorescent lighting that made everything look harsh and cold. You saved my life, sweetheart. You absolutely did the right thing. But now Mommy and Daddy are in jail and I can't go home. I reached across the table and took her small hands in mine. Sometimes adults make very bad choices, Emma. That's not your fault, and it's not mine either. Your parents chose to do something terrible, and now they have to face the consequences. Will they go to prison? I don't know yet, But whatever happens, I want you to know that I will always be here for you. Okay? The trial began in February. Minneapolis was buried under 3 feet of snow, and the courthouse downtown was a maze of reporters and curious onlookers. I had to testify about finding the switched pills, about Emma's warning, and about the strange behavior I had noticed from David and Jennifer in the weeks leading up to their attempt on my life. David's lawyer tried to argue that it was all a misunderstanding, that perhaps I had gotten confused about my medications. But the evidence was overwhelming. Not only did we have the switched pills and Emma's testimony, but the police had found internet searches on Jennifer's laptop for undetectable poisons for elderly people and how to make death look natural. Jennifer's lawyer took a different approach, claiming that she had been coerced by David and was afraid to refuse to help him. She painted her as a desperate mother who feared losing her home and couldn't see any other way out of their financial problem. But the prosecution, led by District Attorney Karen Walsh, presented a clear picture of premeditation and greed. They showed that David and Jennifer had been planning this for months, slowly gaining access to my personal information, befriending my neighbors to establish alibis, and even researching my daily routines. This wasn't a crime of passion, DA Walsh told the jury during her closing argument. This was a calculated, cold-blooded attempt to murder a 78-year-old woman for her money. They used her love for her family against her, exploiting her trust and her desire to help them. The jury deliberated for 2 days. I sat in that courthouse waiting room, drinking bad coffee from paper cups, and watching the snow fall outside the tall windows. Emma's Aunt Sarah sat with me sometimes, and we would talk about Emma's adjustment to her new school and how she was doing in therapy. She's resilient, Sarah told me. Kids are more resilient than we think, but she asks about you constantly. She wants to know when she can come live with you. I had been thinking about that a lot. At 78, was I too old to raise an 8-year-old? Could I give Emma the life she deserved? But every time I looked at her sweet face and remembered how she had saved my life, I knew I had to try. On a cold Thursday morning in March, the jury came back with their verdict. David was found guilty of attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Jennifer was found guilty of the same charges but received a lighter sentence of 10 years due to her cooperation with the investigation and her claim of coercion. As the judge read the sentences, I watched my son's face. There was no remorse there, only anger. He looked at me with such hatred that I barely recognized the little boy I had raised, the young man who used to bring me flowers on Mother's Day and call me every Sunday. After the trial, I began the process of gaining custody of Emma. It wasn't simple. The court had to evaluate whether I was physically and mentally capable of caring for a child, whether my home was suitable, and whether it was in Emma's best interest. I hired a lawyer, Rebecca Chen, who specialized in family law. She helped me navigate the complex legal system and prepare for the home study that Child Protective Services would conduct. Mrs. Williams, I have to be honest with you, Rebecca said during one of our meetings at her office in downtown Minneapolis. The court will have concerns about your age. They'll want to see that you have a support system in place and a plan for Emma's care if something happens to you. I understood their concerns, but I also knew that Emma and I belonged together. We had been through something traumatic together, and we needed each other to heal. The home study process took 3 months. A social worker named Janet came to my house multiple times, interviewing me about my parenting plans, my health, my finances, and my support system. She also spent time with Emma, asking her what she wanted and how she felt about living with me. I want to live with Grandma, Emma told Janet during one of these interviews, which I was allowed to observe. She keeps me safe, and she makes the best chocolate chip cookies. I had started making those cookies every week during our supervised visit. It was something normal we could do together, something that felt like family. In June, 6 months after David and Jennifer's conviction, the judge granted me temporary custody of Emma. It wasn't permanent yet, but it was That afternoon, I picked Emma up from Sarah's house and brought her home to Elm Street. "This is your room now," I told her, showing her the spare bedroom that I had spent weeks preparing. I had painted the walls a soft lavender color that she had chosen, bought new furniture, and filled the bookshelves with age-appropriate books. Emma ran to the window, and looked out at the backyard where Robert had planted an oak tree 20 years earlier. It was now massive, its branches providing shade for most of the yard. "Can we put a swing on that tree, Grandma?" "I think that's a wonderful idea." That first night, Emma had trouble sleeping. I heard her crying softly around midnight, so I went to her room and sat on the edge of her bed. "I miss them," she whispered. "Even though they did a bad thing, I still miss my mommy and daddy." "That's okay, sweetheart. It's normal to miss them. They're still your parents, and you're allowed to love them, even though they made terrible choices." "Do you think they'll ever get out of jail?" "Someday, yes. But that's a long time from now, and a lot of things might be different by then." "Will you still be here?" The question broke my heart, but I answered honestly. "I don't know how long I'll live, Emma. Nobody knows that. But I promise you that as long as I'm here, you'll have a home with me. And if something happens to me, we'll make sure you're taken care of by people who love you." Over the summer, Emma and I established new routine. We planted a vegetable garden in the backyard, something I had always wanted to do, but never found the time for when Robert was alive, and I was working full-time as a bookkeeper. Emma loved getting her hands dirty, and watching the tomatoes and peppers grow gave us both a sense of hope and continuity. We also started therapy together with Dr. Linda Martinez, a family counselor who specialized in trauma recovery. The sessions were difficult at first. Emma struggled with guilt about her parents' imprisonment, and I grappled with feelings of betrayal and grief for the son I thought I knew. "Healing isn't linear," Dr. Martinez explained during one of our sessions. "There will be good days and bad days, and that's normal. The important thing is that you're both committed to moving forward together." One particularly difficult day came in August, when Emma received a letter from David. It was the first contact she had had with her parents since their arrest. In the letter, David apologized for what he had done, but also tried to justify his actions by saying he had been desperate and thought I would understand since I loved him. Emma was confused and upset after reading the letter. "Does Daddy really think what he did was okay?" she asked me. "No, sweetheart. I think your daddy is still making excuses for his choices instead of taking full responsibility for them. Sometimes when people do something really wrong, it's easier for them to blame other people or circumstances than to admit they made a terrible mistake." "Are you going to write back to him?" I had been struggling with this question myself. Part of me wanted to write to David, to try to understand how he had become someone capable of trying to murder his own mother. But another part of me knew that contact with him would only bring more pain and confusion. "I don't think so, Emma. At least not right now. Maybe someday in the future. But right now I think it's better for both of us to focus on building our new life together." In September, Emma started 4th grade at Jefferson Elementary. It was the same school she had attended before, which provided some stability, but her family situation had changed so dramatically that everything felt different. Some of the other children had heard about what happened from their parents, and Emma had to deal with questions and stares. I met with her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, to explain the situation and ask for her help in protecting Emma's privacy as much as possible. "Emma is a remarkable little girl," Mrs. Patterson told me during our meeting. "She's been through something that would traumatize most adults, but she's shown incredible resilience. However, I do think she could benefit from working with the school counselor." Emma started meeting with the school counselor, Mr. Johnson, twice a week. He helped her develop coping strategies for the difficult emotions she was experiencing and taught her how to respond to questions from classmates about her situation. Meanwhile, I was adjusting to life as the primary caregiver for an energetic 9-year-old. Some days I felt overwhelmed by the responsibility and wondered if I was too old for this. But other days, when Emma would show me a drawing she had made or tell me about something funny that happened at school, I felt more alive and purposeful than I had in years. One evening in October, as we were carving pumpkins for Halloween, Emma asked me a question that took me by surprise. "Grandma, do you think my parents will ever apologize to you? Like really apologize, not like Daddy's letter?" I thought carefully before answering. "I don't know, Emma. Real apologies require people to understand how much they've hurt others and to feel genuine remorse for their actions. Your parents might get there someday, or they might not. But whether they apologize or not doesn't change the fact that what they did was wrong, and it doesn't change how much I love you." I love you too, Grandma. And I'm glad I told you about the pills, even though it made everything complicated. You saved my life, sweetheart. You're my hero. As Emma's 9th birthday approached in November, I wanted to make it special. It would be her first birthday without her parents, and I knew it would be emotionally difficult for her. I decided to throw her a party with her school friends, something David and Jennifer had never been able to afford. We sent out invitations to her entire class, decorated the house with purple streamers, her favorite color, and planned games and activities. I even hired a clown, something that seemed ridiculously extravagant but made Emma's eyes light up when I told her. The party was a success. 12 children showed up, along with several parents who I was getting to know through school activities. Watching Emma laugh and play with her friends, seeing her act like a normal 9-year-old instead of a child who had been through trauma, filled my heart with joy. That night, after all the guests had gone home, and we were cleaning up the wrapping paper and leftover cake, Emma hugged me tightly. This was the best birthday ever, Grandma. Thank you for making it so special. You deserve all the special birthdays in the world, Emma. As winter approached, I realized that Emma and I had created something beautiful together. We had taken a situation born out of greed and betrayal and turned it into a loving, supportive family. We weren't the traditional grandmother-granddaughter relationship where I spoiled her occasionally and sent her home to her parents. We were a family unit, making decisions together, supporting each other through difficult times, and building a future together. In December, a year after that terrible night when Emma warned me about the pills, I received official notification that my custody of Emma had been made permanent. The court had evaluated our situation and determined that Emma was thriving in my care and that it was in her best interest to remain with me. That evening, as we sat by the Christmas tree we had decorated together, Emma asked me about something that had been on her mind. Grandma, when I grow up and have kids of my own, will you tell them the story about how I saved your life? If you want me to, yes, but I think by then you'll be old enough to tell them yourself. I want them to know that even when really bad things happen, families can still love each other and take care of each other. That's exactly right, Emma. That's exactly what I want them to know too. Looking back now, I realize that the night Emma whispered those words to me was both the worst and the best thing that ever happened to me. It was the worst because it revealed that my own son was willing to kill me for money. But it was also the best because it brought Emma and me together in a way that never would have happened otherwise. I lost a son that night, but I gained a daughter, and Emma lost her parents, but she gained a grandmother who would do anything to protect her and give her the life she deserved. Sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones that are forged in difficult circumstances, held together not just by blood, but by choice, love, and unwavering commitment to each other's well-being. Today, Emma is 10 years old, and she's thrived. She makes good grades, has close friends, and has learned to trust again. She still goes to therapy, and we still have difficult days when she misses her parents or worries about the future. But mostly our life is filled with ordinary, wonderful moments. Homework help, bedtime stories, Saturday morning pancakes, and the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing we saved each other. And every night before she goes to sleep, Emma still whispers to me, but now instead of warnings about danger, she whispers, "I love you, Grandma. Sweet dreams." And I whisper back, "I love you too, sweetheart. You're safe now."